That wonderful poem from Ian, Bleeding Heart. You're just a bleeding heart. But because a heart that remembers how to bleed is a heart still living, beating. And yes, apocalypse is now, is now, is now. Wow. And what is the symbol of Holy Trinity? It's a heart. It's that heart that's filled with moving red lines. Our late and beloved poet laureate Ian Soughton expressed it in these words, that the heart that is alive, it's a heart that's still beating, and it's a heart that remembers how to bleed. It's a heart that's still beating. As we gather together today under the symbol of that pulsing heart, we're opening a new cycle of worship in the liturgical year at Holy Trinity. A cycle that will take us on a new journey through the life of Christ. A journey that will end with an outpouring of the Spirit at Pentecost into the heart of the city. In this particular year, 2021 to 22, we're also writing a new chapter in the history of the Church of the Holy Trinity. We're not writing a new book altogether, no, but simply opening up the next chapter in the precious volume of memories that has already been authored by previous generations. The readings today, especially Ian's powerful evocation of the last final judgment, provide a starting point for reflection. Though, as an aside, I must tell you that I volunteered to preach this Sunday before I'd seen that gospel reading. But thanks, Bill, for providing such a great proclamation, even though it's sort of not exactly good news. So, there is indeed a shadow of apocalypse that runs through all three readings. But on this first Sunday of Advent 2021, that word apocalypse has been bandied about so much in general usage in the news and in commentaries that, well, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a certain level of apocalypse fatigue. We've had almost 3 years of COVID, and just as we think we're almost home free, another strain has muted into Omicron, with lockdowns and flights cancelled by this new variant. We've just gone through a hugely hyped climate change conference in Glasgow, one that was billed as one of the last chances the human race has to change the course of world destruction. Well, it began with a bang, and it ended with a whimper. And now climate change is on our own doorstep, north, south, and west. Widespread and deadly flooding in BC and Nova Scotia, while in the north, the Arctic is melting. Climate refugees are drowning in the Channel off the coast of England. And all this against the backdrop of daily news of increasing poverty, overdose, and homelessness amongst the other calamities on our own doorstep. It's enough to make you scream, enough already! Take those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and send them back to the stable. But although the word apocalypse has become synonymous with disaster, and even the end of the world, it also has another meaning. It actually means a time of unveiling, a time of revelation. It refers to what Jesus calls the end times, a time of crisis and evolution in human history that is often accompanied by much chaos, breakdown, and suffering, but which eventually leads to a breakthrough into new life. A time of crisis and change, and the apparent end of a way of life people have regarded as fixed for all time. And there is a particular end time at many levels playing itself out now in Canada. I want to choose one aspect of this, not just the weather, but I want to look at the shocking revelations of murder and cruelty towards Indigenous children that occurred within the residential school system. This truly is an apocalyptic unveiling, one that is calling all us settler Canadians to judgment, particularly settler Christian churches who bear the brunt of the responsibility for these heinous deeds. The actions inflicted in the name of our faith cry out to heaven for reckoning, for recompense, and for restoration. But this situation also has the possibility of a breakthrough into a new relationship between Indigenous and settler peoples, a new reframing of Canadian identity, and one that enriches our history with far more diversity than just a duality of Francophone and Anglophone. So we can see the possibilities down the road that this has brought about. Now you see Paul's letter, it's very interesting. The letter to the Thessalonians was written at a time of a reframing of identity in the early Christian church. Were they to be offshoots of Judaism, just another branch? Or were they a new beginning altogether? The process of forming these early and far-flung communities in Thessalonica, Corinth, and other places, far from the mother church in Jerusalem, was to cause conflict within and eventually persecution from without. It's not difficult to see why so many interpreted this as a part of the return of Jesus, prophesied as the end times. But every generation on earth has lived within the shadow of its own end times. Approximately 66 million years ago, it was end times for the dinosaurs when an asteroid collided with the Earth. And the planet apparently has survived at least 5 eras of mass destructions. But undoubtedly now, there is a difference. We are now living in a new geological age of the Anthropocene, so called because it has been dominated by human activity on the planet. And so we face again the catastrophic consequences if human abuse of the Earth's resources is not quickly reversed. But, as Advent reminds us, we are not alone. The Holy One entered into the process of evolution right at the moment of creation. And at a certain moment in the unfolding of history, the same Holy One took flesh and walked the face of the earth in the person of Jesus. And in Jesus, we now have a role model of how to live in every succeeding age of human activity. It's a way of life that urgently now calls us in our end times once more to metanoia, or a conversion of life. Jesus, the countercultural, prophetic preacher who confronted the affluent and raised up the poor, comes alive now once more in 2021, especially in this particular corner of the planet that we call Holy Trinity. The face of Jesus, the Holy One, is taking on a host of new features as we write the next chapter in our history. Just as at Pentecost, the people in the marketplace outside the Eaton Center are hearing the message proclaimed and spoken in a great diversity of interpretations: Indigenous, LGBTQ, BIPOC, and especially through Unity Kitchen and in the voice of the homeless and the hungry and the refugee that they see every day in the precincts of our church. Now the church, Holy Trinity, is right out in the marketplace, and the people who come to us don't have to learn churchy language to be welcome inside. And reciprocally, we as a congregation are learning their language, and in the process, we are being stretched into new configurations. So while the doors of the malls and the banks and the offices around us might be firmly shut to so many, here at Holy Trinity they are welcomed with open arms. And in doing this, Holy Trinity is being a countercultural witness, one which hears the knock of the Holy One at the door and flings it open wide, to be truly a local apocalypse or unveiling. So now, as we prepare once again to walk the path of this new Advent of the Holy One in our midst, within the evergreen circle of the wreath, we circle around once more through the past and into the future. And as we raise up our spirits to recharge our batteries and open our hearts to the bleeding face of Christ, once more we hear the ancient invitation of Advent: prepare ye the way of our God. May it be so. Amen.